right, you're welcome to this evening's session. First of all, thank you for coming. We're expecting more, and some are also online. And today is a D-Day. Today is the day that we've been waiting for. I'll just do a quick intro and then hand over the mic to Dave. So firstly, why are we here? This is the first workshop in the series that we call the Kingdom Wealth Forum. And the purpose of this is to learn kingdom principles for wealth creation and preservation. So we know that God wants to bless us. We know that it is His will for us to walk in wealth. But there's some knowledge, there's some principles that we need to know and we need to be able to act upon. And that's why we're here. The other thing is there's a lot of blessing in the body of Christ, or there's a blessing of knowledge in terms of people who have practical experiences, which we are using this to take advantage of. People have experiences in the financial management, in tax, in real estate, in entrepreneurship, in all sorts of knowledge that most people don't know of. And so what a blessing for us to have people like Dave come share this experience with us. 40 years of experience in a sector, in an industry, in an area is something to, is a value, is a treasure that we need to take advantage of, that we need to be grateful for. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you mostly today for your willingness to share with us. And from the little conversation I've had with him, it's amazing the opportunities that are available that we are not taking advantage of because we don't know. So I'm excited to welcome you once again. One thing to note is that we want this session to be as practical as possible. And so this is a forum where you should ask questions, practical issues, which, you can imagine 40 years of experience Dave can talk on anything. We can spend the next 10 hours just talking, but we want the knowledge that is really useful to each one of us. So you have any questions, you have any concerns, you have any practical example you're trying to buy, you're trying to sell, whatever it is, this is a place to ask questions and to learn. So thank you once again for coming, and I'll hand over the mic to Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. As David mentioned, I've been in real estate for quite a long time, and I retired from real estate about 4 years ago in 2018. And when I say I was in real estate, I would drive into Boston 5, 6, even 7 days a week, and I managed 4 offices. I had 60 real estate agents, and there was a lot of pressure to make money and to hire more agents and whatever. So I retired from that world about 4 years ago. But I still love real estate. And the part I love about real estate is working with individual buyers or sellers. That's the fun part. So I decided to form a coaching or consulting company where I could go out and where I call it DRE, real estate coaching. I work with buyers, I work with sellers, and I also work with real estate agents that are trying to improve their business. But today we're going to talk about working with buyers and working with sellers. And I think I've put together a kind of outline on if you are a buyer, and I think there's a lot of people that don't understand the process, and they don't know what resources are available, and they don't know where to get information out there through the state, through the federal government, through local resources to make decisions. And if you're buying real estate or selling real estate, you're going to have to make a number of important decisions. So let's get started. We'll jump right into it. One of the first decisions that you should make when you get to the point where you're serious about buying a home, you need to hire a real estate agent. And I know there's a lot of people out there, I've learned over the years, a lot of people think that they can do it themselves. And I think that's a big mistake, because you're talking about a lot of money, you're talking about a lot of time, and if you waste time and things don't happen the way you want them to happen, you're also going to create a lot of stress and anxiety. So the more you know about the process, the more you know about the resources, the better things are going to go. And one of your most valuable resources is a real estate broker. That's not the role that I fill. A lot of people think that I've been in the business for a long time, so I know what the value of real estate is in Rhode Island and Massachusetts and California and Florida. It doesn't work that way. A real estate broker works in a certain market, and he knows that market inside and out. So the value of a good real estate agent is critical. And your real estate agent needs to, well, here, let me do this. Does everybody know how a real estate Does everybody know how a real estate commission works? I think it's important to have that baseline information. And a lot of people wonder who pays the real estate commission? Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Who pays the commission? So this chart will show you right up here, sale price $500,000. 6% commission is paid by the seller. So the seller pays the real estate commission. So that's $30,000. You need to understand that there's two sides to every real estate commission. There's the seller side and there's the buying side. And most real estate agents that take a listing will split that 50-50. So they'll give 3% or $15,000 to the buyer side and 3% or $15,000 to the seller side. So if you're a buyer and you're working with a real estate agent and you hire a real estate agent, the chances are, in terms of actually paying a commission, writing a check to pay the commission, or being charged at the closing for the commission is not going to happen. You will have some expenses, but paying the real estate commission, it starts off at the top and it's going to be charged to the seller. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? The buyer doesn't have to pay. Some people would say, well, wait a minute. If the seller didn't have to pay 6% commission, he could sell it for less money, which is true. So a lot of sellers kind of allow for so they kind of bake the commission, the total commission, into the transaction. If that makes sense? Does that make sense? In other words, this seller, if he didn't have to pay commission, he could sell the property for $30,000 less. And 6% is not standard, it's not fixed, it's negotiable. So any seller can say, well, I'd like to hire you, but I'm going to pay you 4%. And the broker will say, well, I'm not going to do it for 4%, I'll do it for 5%. So commissions are negotiable. But that's how a real estate commission works, and that's when you if you're a buyer and you want to hire a real estate agent, chances are you're not going to get a bill for $15,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, depending upon how much money you spend. You also need to understand the nature of the relationship that you will have with that real estate agent. It's a fiduciary relationship. Has anybody ever heard that term? Do you know what that term means? A fiduciary relationship means that he has to put your interests above his, much like that of a relationship that you might have with an attorney. So it's a very serious commitment that he has to make to put your interest above his, and it's a legal relationship. And you will be asked, chances are, you will be asked when you hire an agent to sign a contract. It's a buyer representation agreement. And that gets the process started. And it will say that that the agent, that the real estate person that you hire is your agent, your fiduciary, and you are the client or the principal, and that you are looking for a home in these towns. They may list 5 or 6 towns in this price range, and in the event you buy one, then that agent will get paid the commission as offered by the seller's agent, okay? So you're making a commitment to that agent as well, and you really can't go out. If you hire that agent and you sign a contract, you're committed as well to work with that agent. You just can't go out and start working with every real estate agent out there, and I don't recommend that. So that's the first decision you're going to have to make, and it's one of the most important. Involve a real estate agent once you're to the point where you're serious. And this is where my business comes in. This is where I come in, because there's good real estate agents out there, and there's bad real estate agents out there. And there's good lenders out there, and there's bad lenders out there. There's good attorneys out there, and there's bad attorneys out there. And you want to work with good people who honor and value that fiduciary relationship and are going to give you the information and the level of service that you need to have a successful transaction. So what I do, I try to work with people before they involve the agent, and I go over what we're talking about today. And sometimes it's easier to do that one-on-one, because everybody has individual needs, everybody has individual timing. And if I can make the introduction, and I have a network of real estate agents that I've worked with over the years, so I know the good ones and I know the bad ones. If I can make the introduction and make a referral of you as buyer to a real estate agent, then I'm going to get paid out of this, a nominal fee, a small fee. And I'm not in this for the money, guys. I'll be perfectly honest with you. That's not why I'm doing this. I really care more about helping people understand the process and buy a home or sell a home. But that's how my business operates. That's the structure of my business. Okay, in the third paragraph, does everybody have the buyer's guide? We're going to kind of sort of go down through this. The third paragraph. And again, this is all. We're going to talk about this in more detail as we go through the pages, but you need to know how much leverage you have when it comes to negotiating price. Because let's face it, nobody wants to overpay. Nobody wants to pay too much for a home. And you need to know what is going on in the market in order to understand how much leverage you have. And everybody's probably heard stories the last 3 or 4 years in Rhode Island. It's been a very, very strong seller's market. There's been a lot of buyers out there looking for homes. The inventory has been very low. So if there's a lot of buyers and there's not many sellers, then the sellers have leverage, okay? And I'm sure you've all heard stories, but I think the record that I've heard in Rhode Island, one seller, one listing, one property had 12 offers. And that makes it very difficult for buyers. And so you need to know at the get-go what to expect out there and what's happening. And the way you do that is you get information from the market. Where are we here? This is a website called Rhode Island Living, and it contains information, rhodeislandliving.com, and you don't have to remember this. If you want to find this later, just call me. Just my name and my number and contact information is there. But I'm going to go to and this is for the state of Rhode Island. You see up here, residential market trends. Single-family homes, October of 2022. So if we look at this information, we can see that in October, 777 single-family homes sold in the state of Rhode Island. And you can see the days on market, you can see the median sales price, you can see how many listings there were in October. So 777 sold, there were almost 1,500 available. So this is information. I don't want to complicate the matter, but your real estate agent, when you identify your town or your area, you want to get from the real estate agent, let's say in the last 6 months, how many comparable properties have sold. And let's say in the last 6 months that 12 have sold. So they're selling at the rate of 2 per month. If there's 10 properties available today, that's a 5-month supply of inventory. And a 5-month supply of inventory is what I would call a balanced market, where the buyer and the seller have an equal amount of leverage when it comes to negotiating a price. I've seen some markets where you've had over 100 months supply of inventory. And that is a very, very strong buyer's market. Because with over 100 months of inventory, there's a lot of sellers, there's not many buyers, so the buyers are in the driver's seat. That goes back about 15 years, okay? But again, in recent months, you've seen the opposite. It's probably been the strongest seller's market that many of us have ever seen. And I know that's frustrating if you're a buyer. But the good news is I think things are beginning to change. Things are beginning to turn. So one of the first things, and I don't want to dwell on this, but one of the first things you need to know through your real estate agent, with my help if necessary, you want to ask him, okay, I'm looking in the city of Providence. I'm looking in this neighborhood. 10 properties have sold. There's 3 available. There's a 2-month supply of inventory. Uh-oh, I'm going to be bumping into other buyers out there. I may have to pay over list price to get the property, and that's what's been happening. And I may have to remove my inspection contingency, and that's what's been happening. And that's not a good idea. Good news is I think things are starting to change. And this was an article in the Providence Journal. This was, I think, middle of October. And the problem with newspaper, problem with anything you read or hear in the news, it's old information. It's a week, it's 2 weeks, it's a month old, and that's too old. You need more current information, and again, I'm going to hammer away at this. That's where your real estate agent comes in. But in the state of Rhode Island, excuse me here, this article goes down and talks about prices are still way up compared to last 2020. While the number of sales are down, okay, prices are still holding, and usually prices lag the market. In other words, if we are going through a transition, which I do believe we are, and it's starting, you've read the news, we are in a, quote, recession, possibly. Interest rates have gone from 3% plus or minus to 7% plus or minus in the last several months. So I do believe that we are transitioning from a very strong seller's market. I think it's going to be more balanced, and we'll see how deep things go, how deep this recession is, what happens to interest rates, what happens to the inventory, how many sellers are out there. I know there's a lot of buyers out there. Higher interest rates will affect affordability, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And once again, the best source to know what's going on in the market, are things changing, is to work with your local real estate agent. Okay, leverage, the time involved. If you look on the first page, I've just kind of penciled out. Has everybody got the home buyer's guide? How long does it take to complete a real estate transaction? Well, that kind of sort of depends. But on day one, you want to hire a real estate agent with my help, and I'm happy to help. And before you hire the agent, we should spend some time together going over a lot of this and focusing in on your needs and timing. From days 1 to 4, you need to define and document your needs, what you're looking for, what size, what location, how many bedrooms, what's important in the house, and we're going to talk about that. And days 1 through 7, you need to secure your mortgage pre-approval. You need to pick a lender, and we're going to talk about that. But that should happen on days 1 through 7. On days 4 through unknown, you're going to be looking at property showings. And then, at some point in time, you're going to negotiate an offer. So you're going to come to agreement with a seller, and you're going to get a written, signed, accepted offer on a piece of real estate, and we don't know when that's going to happen. So that's to be determined. But after, on page 2, is everybody with me? After your offer is accepted, we can predict what's going to happen and when. So 3 to 7 days after your offer is accepted, you're going to complete some home inspections. And everybody's familiar, knows what that is. You bring in a home inspector and they look through the property to make sure that there's no surprises. You're also going to engage an attorney. Most people will want to engage their attorney after the offer is accepted. Some people maybe before, but normally the real estate agents involved in the transaction can handle the offer, the first piece. Days 10 through 14, you're going to finalize or sign the purchase contract, a more detailed agreement. The offer that you signed, the initial contract, is binding. But that will be replaced after the mortgage and most of the contingencies have been removed with the exception of financing. Days 10 through 14, you're going to submit your mortgage application with a lender you've already spoken to. Days 14 through 40, they're going to process the mortgage. There's going to be an appraisal done on the property, which you will pay for. The closing attorney working for the lender is going to examine the title to the property. They want to make sure, and you want to make sure, there's no clouds, there's no problems with the title. And days 40 through 45, they're going to issue a mortgage commitment. You're going to put the utilities in your name. Days 45 through 60, you're going to close. And you always want to walk through the property before the morning of the day of your closing. Make sure there's no surprises. Did they take everything out? Did they mow the lawn? Have they left it in broom clean condition or whatever? So, any questions so far? All right, let's go to page 3. Your team. We talked about you're going to have to make a lot of important decisions. And in addition to your real estate agent, you're going to need to involve a lender. And as I said before, there are good lenders and not so good lenders. Some lenders offer products as a teaser, if you will. They'll offer an incredible rate or they'll offer an incredible term, mortgage term, to try to get somebody to come in and fill out an application and work with them. So your real estate agent and myself and organizations like Rhode Island Housing. Rhode Island Housing is a quasi-state agency, and their goal is to assist people in Rhode Island with their housing needs. And a big piece of that is mortgages, mortgage financing. So if you're a buyer, your mortgage program's here. They have first-time home buyer products available. Okay. They will loan up to $546,000 for 1 to 4 family homes. A 1-family, 2-family, 3-family, or a 4-family. If it's 5 or more units, it's not a residential transaction. It's a commercial transaction. And the financing changes dramatically. The whole process changes. But if you're a first-time buyer, if your annual income is less than $112,000, or your household is less than $129,438, they have some incredible products, including the possibility of putting no money down. So they're here to help first-time home buyers. If you are a first-time home buyer, this is a requirement. You have to speak to these people. They don't act as the lenders, but over here you can see they have participating lenders, and they rank the top 10 loan officers, individuals. So number one is Evelyn Perez with Guaranteed Rate Affinity, and there's her phone number. That means that she works with Rhode Island Housing on a regular basis. She does a good job, and they're happy with her. And the state of Rhode Island is not going to put their name there, make a recommendation or put somebody's name there that they don't have a good track record with. So I think that's a safe bet that somebody like that. So Rhode Island Housing does not submit the loan application or process the loan application. That would be up to an individual loan officer. So all these loan officers listed here, Juan, Serta, Eric, Maluk, not only do they deal with Rhode Island Housing, but they deal with other lenders as well. So if you're not a first-time buyer, they'll work with FHA programs. The financing it can be very complicated. And so you need your first team member after your broker should be your lender, because you're going to have to get a letter of pre-approval before you submit an offer on a property. If a seller gets an offer today and the buyer doesn't have a letter of pre-approval, the seller won't even consider it. He's got 10 other offers. So he's going to take cash, or he's going to take somebody with a very strong letter of pre-approval. So this has to be done up front. Real estate attorney. You're going to want to hire a real estate attorney, and they're going to charge, this is a buyer expense. Oftentimes, the same lender that is working, the lender's attorney can also represent you, and that is a possible way to save some money and keep those fees a little bit lower. But your real estate agent and or Rhode Island Housing may be the best source. A good real estate agent will send a lot of business to one or two attorneys, and those attorneys, there's a built-in incentive for them to take great care of that agent's clients, okay? So everything starts with the real estate agent. The third member of your team is the home inspector. So normally, you make an offer, and you want to have a home inspected, your home inspected, and that wants to be completed within 7 to 10 days. And you're looking for hidden defects or surprises. And your offer should be written that if you find a serious mechanical, structural, or other defect in the property, that you have the right to get out of the transaction and get your money back. Because with your offer, you've put down a deposit, okay? And you don't want that deposit to be, they call it hard, non-refundable, unless you're convinced that there are no serious issues with the property. If it has a crack in the foundation and it's going to cost $20,000 to repair it, you can say, I'll accept it as is and move ahead. Or you can say, no, I want my money back. You want to have that option. And your agent has got to make sure that the offer that you have written gives you that option, and that's pretty normal, pretty standard. What does happen sometimes after the inspection, some buyers will use the inspection as a way to renegotiate the deal. And they'll come in and they'll say, well, I don't like the drapes, so I want you to take off $10,000. And the seller's going to say, hey, I got 9 other buyers here, okay? Drapes don't cost $9,000 or $10,000, whatever it is. And the drapes were in the house when you saw it. So, you know, they're going to see through that. The inspection is really for serious stuff that you were unaware of or didn't expect. So that's your team, and your team wants to be in place pretty early on in the process. And your real estate agent can put you in touch with people that have a good track record. Any questions on that? Your team? Your team's important. Okay, understanding your needs. The next page. There's an old saying in real estate. Buyers are liars. And buyers aren't liars. They just don't know what they don't know. Oftentimes when somebody wants to buy a home, they have a vision up here in their of they want a great yard. I mean, they have a vision of what they want their home to be like. And it's not uncommon for that vision to be so far moved from reality that buyers are referred to as liars. Let me explain. I had a good friend that wanted to buy a house. This is north of Boston, and he was a sailor. He loved to sail. And Marblehead, do you guys heard of Marblehead? It's a big sailing community north of Boston. And he said, Dave, I only have two conditions. I want to live in Marblehead, and I'm not going to live in a ranch. Those are my two things going in. And after looking at a lot of properties and spending 2 or 3 weeks out in the market and learning and figuring out what was going on, he had to make a decision. He could buy a beautiful home, antique colonial in Salem right next door in his price range, but he couldn't buy it in Marblehead. So he had to decide, do I want Marblehead? Is that more important than a ranch? He ended up in a ranch in Marblehead. But that was one of his no can do's at the beginning. So the point is, as you go through the process, as you look at more homes, your needs are going to evolve. And you may be required to make some concessions as you go along. People moving into the city of Boston, for the way prices went, for $500,000, you get a studio or 1 bedroom with no parking. So if parking's important, they have to decide, do I want to be in the city or do I want to be in the suburbs where I can park? So any first-time buyer, any buyer, anytime is going to have to go through that evolution. So this is a way for you to document. You can just go down and look at this, but your agent needs to know, when do you want to be in? When do you want to be into your new home? What cities or towns should you consider? Why do you like those cities, those areas? What are the price range parameters? You're going to get this when you talk to your lender. And I'm going to share something else with you here. The internet's great. Zillow. Has anybody heard of Zillow? Has anybody been on Zillow? Yes? No? Anybody? Yes? You guys got to know about Zillow, okay? Because Zillow is one of the biggest real estate websites there is. And they are trying to make the process, they take the human element out of it. You can get what's called a Zestimate from Zillow. They will tell you what your home is worth. You can Google any property and go to Zillow, and they will give you a, quote, Zestimate. The problem is they've never seen the home. They've never been inside your home. So they're just taking data from the market and making some adjustments electronically and coming up with a range of value. They don't know that you've just renovated your kitchen and both bathrooms, that you've just finished your basement, that you've just put on a new roof, that you've just spent a lot of money. They don't know that. So a word of caution about Zillow when it comes to valuing your home and some of the decisions that need a human's involvement, they're notoriously wrong. But they do have an affordability calculator. Okay? So can everybody see on the screen? See the 70,000? So if let's say your income, let's just keep it simple. Let's say it's 100,000. And let's say your monthly debts are, let's say they're 500. And let's say you're putting $20,000 down. You can afford a house up to $323,000. Okay? Now you can fiddle around on Zillow and use this affordability calculator, but the way you're really going to fine-tune this to make sure there's no surprises and make sure you have the best information is you're going to talk to the lender. Okay? And you've already had the lender meetings before you've documented your needs. So you see how important the team is. You've got to get the lender involved pretty soon right after the real estate broker. The other thing that I think could be helpful, there's the 4 C's of qualifying for a mortgage. So what is a lender going to look at? When you walk in and you fill out an application and they're going to look at you as an individual, what are they going to consider? They're going to consider your capacity to pay the loan back. How much money do you make? What's the income? What are the earnings? What's the likelihood that they're going to continue? They're looking for stability here. They're looking for a work track record or an income stream that is stable. If somebody's bounced around to 4 different jobs in the last year, it's not going to be working in your favor. They're also going to be looking at your monthly debt, car payments, student loans, credit card payments, personal loans. So they're going to take the income, they're going to look at the monthly debt, and they're looking for that to be with a certain percentage. Okay, and they're all roughly the same. They don't want your debt to be more than 28 to 30% more of your income. So if your income's there and it's steady, and that's big, that's huge. But they're also going to look at your debt. So number 1 is your capacity to pay. Capital, how much money do you have? What kind of a down payment do you have? How much money do you have in the bank? Okay? And this is for what I would call a conventional mortgage. A lot of the mortgages that Rhode Island Housing does and other lenders will do, whether it's FHA, whether it's VA, they're not conventional. They have programs that will deal with people that have problems in some of these areas or issues in some of these areas, if you will. But they're going to want to know how much capital you have. How much are you putting down? They're going to look at the collateral. They're going to look at the property. They want to make sure, like we talked before, that there's a clean title. They want to make sure that physically there's not, a nuclear waste site in the backyard. So they're going to have some concerns about the property because that's their collateral. That's their guarantee for the mortgage. And lastly, they're going to look at your credit score. So credit is important. And again, if there are issues in any one of these areas, that doesn't mean there's no recourse or there's no alternative route to go here. That's where Rhode Island Housing and some of the government-assisted programs come into play. There are no government programs that are this buyer-friendly for 5 or more units. Those are commercial loans. And these numbers are more important on commercial loans than residential loans. Okay? So your budget, price parameters, what property type. You're going to have to think about what property type or style you want. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? What other rooms are important? And then in order of importance, I've just put down there on this worksheet 1 through 5. How important are schools? It's really important to a lot of people. So you need to rank that. About condition, are you willing to do some work or do you want it turnkey? If you're willing to put some sweat equity in it, then that may be working. How important is location? How important is lot size, community, the kitchen, elevator? You know, a lot of buildings, condos, high-rise buildings will have an elevator. In the city, you know, we would joke about a 4th or 5th floor walk-up. Who wants to walk up 4 or 5 floors with groceries and things? But view, is it pet-friendly? Pets are big. Lifestyle, walkability. So you need to think about all these things. And you should think about these, and you should form a plan. You should outline these before you look at real estate. After you've hired your agent, they can help you with this, but your agent can do a better job if you take this to them and say, this is what I'm looking for. Then they can really do their job. And then you go out and you look at real estate, and this changes. This evolves. Every home you look at, you're gaining more knowledge, more information, so you can start making concessions if you have to. So understanding your needs is important. Financing. I think we talked a little bit about that, but we talked about Rhode Island housing. Early on, you'll sit down one-on-one, confidentially, and you'll talk to the lender. And they're going to take a lot of information about the 4 C's, about your income, about your debt. They're going to run your credit. They don't have the collateral yet, so they can't look at that. But they're going to look at everything else. And they're going to verify everything that you tell them. And at the end of that day, you will, or at that meeting, or within a day or two, and with the internet, they can do it very, very quickly. You're going to have a budget. You're going to know how much you can afford, what price range you should be looking. And let's say at the end of the day, you can afford $350. Depending upon the market, you may look at up to $400,000, assuming that there may be some room to negotiate. Okay, in this market, that may not be the case, or the market we've experienced over the last several years. But one thing you need to understand about real estate: it's very cyclical. It goes up and it goes down. Values go up and go down. Some markets are better for sellers. Some markets are better for buyers. And that's why it's important. We talked at the very beginning. You need to understand how much leverage you have in the market and what are the market conditions. And this is a test question. Where do you get that information? You get it from your real estate agent. So you're going to sit down, you're going to talk to the lender, and they're going to take a lot of information, and hopefully you're going to get a letter of pre-approval. You can't submit an offer without that letter of pre-approval. And that's basically what we're saying on that page. So after that, the search begins. So is anybody getting alerts? Is anybody actively looking for a house, or have you been kind of actively? Are you getting real estate alerts? Blessed? You're getting real estate alerts. From a real estate company or from Zillow? Zillow. Okay, let's take a look at that quickly. One thing that drives, this is Zillow, and I've never signed up for alerts from Zillow, so Blessed could probably tell me. But MLS, does everybody know what MLS is? The multiple listing service? Is that a term everybody's familiar with? Do you know what it is, actually? No, I see some no's. Well, the multiple listing service, every real estate agent in Rhode Island, every real estate office, I shouldn't say every good real estate office belongs to MLS. And when they take a listing, when a seller hires them to sell their home and they sign a contract, that's called the listing agreement or contract. And MLS requires all members to put that property into the multiple listing service. So every other real estate member in the state has access to that. And so another real estate office is working with a buyer. He goes into MLS and he says, oh, I did a search. So that your agent, you tell him, this is what I'm looking for. He goes in to those towns and maybe the immediate towns or other towns that he knows about, and he does a search and he comes up with a list with possible properties. So that's what MLS is. Zillow, Redfin, any office real estate website you're on, they're all fed by MLS. So the database is the same for all of them. And I would use Zillow as a good way to see. You go right up here. Do you see my mouse there? That's for sale. These are homes that are for sale in a very large area. And we can bring that down. Where are we here? I kind of get lost, but I want to get in. So let's go down to the Rhode Island area. Okay, so we're down here in Providence. Oops. Okay. So every red dot is a home for sale. So once you start, and you can take this down, you can put that down as close as you want. So once you've completed your initial needs analysis, and you've got a sense of, gee, I'm looking in these towns, and I'm looking at these prices, you can go on to Zillow, and you can say, oh, here's one for $235. And there's all the information that you need to know about that house. Okay, so these are homes that are currently available. So Zillow's good in this respect because it really helps you see what's out there. But you can, in addition to what's available, you can also look and see what's sold. And that's equally as important because you need to start developing, by the time you're done your home search and you're through this process, you're going to be an expert on values in your market area, okay? You're going to hopefully have seen every home that's available, and you're going to see every home that's recently sold. So if you're getting serious about buying a home, you should log on to Zillow, okay? And I'm trying to think, how do you... I'm not sure on Zillow how you arrange for alerts. I can tell you here, residential properties, Zillow, Rhode Island housing market. Let's go to Rhode Island residential properties. Okay, Residential Properties is a real estate company in Providence. They're a very good company. I have worked with them for many, many years. Their agents are good, their management is good, their service is good, their product is good. So you can go on their website and you can do your own search here too, and it's going to come up with the exact same information you find on Zillow because it's all fed by MLS, okay? Now, you're not a member of MLS, but you can't go, so you can't go into that database, but this is as good. This is the same thing. So if you know another real estate company that you like, that you think has a great website, go on and do your search. But if you log up here, see log in, register, you can complete a process, your email and password, and they will send you alerts. So if you go on and you say, I'm looking for homes in Providence, I'm looking for single families up to 500,000, they will, as soon as it's listed, you'll get an alert. So you'll know, you'll have very very current live information. And those alerts, for most companies, are done every 15 minutes. So if it's too broad, you're going to be getting a lot of alerts. But if you're serious, you want to know about this. In these sites, in this technology creates the opportunity for some buyers to say, I'm going to go right to the listing agent, or I don't need to involve my agent. But remember, you've signed a contract. You've made a commitment to that agent. So if you see something online, if you see a yard sign, if somebody tells you about a property, you need to work through that agent, because they're going to expect it. And they're putting a lot of time and effort into this. And nobody gets paid. Going back to that real estate, the commission structure we started at the beginning, nobody gets paid in real estate until it closes. Okay? And so I would encourage you not to jump off of the agent if you see something. I would say, hey, chances are they've seen it already anyways. Chances are they're going to contact you to say, hey, we got something new. And if they haven't, then just bring it to their attention. It may be a little bit outside of your original needs. So when you start looking at real estate, you should go with your agent and go to the property. You probably won't see the seller. You shouldn't see the seller. The seller should be gone and let you have the opportunity to look at the home. You may see the listing agent. The listing agent is working for the seller. The listing agent is not working for you. The listing agent has a fiduciary duty to the seller. So when you go in to look at properties, put on your poker face. I would love it if a family came in and their eyes lit up and they smiled. This is perfect. I love this. Oh my goodness, look at this. This is just what we want. If I'm the listing agent hearing that, I'm going to the seller and say, we got them, okay? They got to have. So put on your poker face. Don't let them know how much you like it if you do like it. But each showing will probably last 10 or 15 minutes. And when you're done, you should go out and say, okay, while it's fresh in your mind, because if you look at 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 properties in a day, they're all going to start to, it's tiring. So each one, take notes. What did you like? What didn't you like? And every property you look at, your initial, remember we talked about this being an evolution. Buyers are liars. This is what I want, but you end up with something different. You're not a liar. You just, it's part of the education process. And again, you may have to make concessions. You may have to change location. You may have access to additional capital, so your budget may increase if there's a family member or a friend that can lend you some money or give you some money, and that happens quite often. Okay, the next page is the offer to purchase. And so after you've looked at some property, you've seen a property, you want to make an offer. And in most states, you're going to sit down and your agent will prepare a contract. And it's an offer. And the most important decision you're going to have to make in that offer is price. And if you've done your homework and you know how much leverage you are, and you've looked at some properties, and you and your agent have really looked at the market, and you're going to make you're going to be well informed, and you're going to decide how much you want to offer. Your agent can't decide that. That's your decision. So that's the most important thing. It'll include the inspections. It'll include the closing dates. You're going to write a deposit. It's called a good faith estimate. It tells the seller you're sincere, that you're operating with good faith. So the seller's going to want to see deposit, and he's going to want to see a letter of pre-approval, which we've talked about. You're going to submit that along with a check. Your agent will deliver it to the listing agent, and he will present it to the seller. The seller can accept it, he can reject it, or he could say, I'm not willing to do that, but if you're willing to increase the price a little bit, maybe I'll consider it. So there may be a time after you submit the offer where you're going back and forth, and you're trying to arrange a meeting of the minds. And hopefully there aren't other offers on the table. Because if you get into multiple offers, call me, okay? Because that can get very, very tricky. Excuse me. So hopefully, after you submit an offer, it goes to the seller, you go back and forth a little bit. Hopefully you arrange a, quote, meeting of the minds. And this is important. Get it reduced to writing as soon as possible. Get him to sign it and to get you sign it. Once you've both signed it, you have a contract. You have a legal contract. The seller is committed to sell it to you under the terms and conditions in the four corners of the offer, and you're committed to buy it from him under those conditions. Okay, he can't sell the property to somebody else. You have control of the property, and that's important. You want control, so you can take your time that you've asked for and he's agreed to in the offer to do your inspections, to get your financing going, and make sure the financing goes through, make sure the title's okay, make sure the property appraises, all of that. Once the offer is accepted, everything goes into, quote, escrow. And that's when the lender has to do a lot of work. That's when your attorney has to do a lot of work. That's when your home inspector has to do a lot of work. Excuse me. I think I'm talking too much. So after it's accepted, you go into escrow, and everything's held. The deposit is held by the listing agent. So your deposit is held by the listing agent, and he has to account for that at the closing. Getting back to how much should you offer? Your agent, once you found a property you want to make an offer on, your agent should do what's called a CMA or a BPO, or to keep it simple, he should do a pricing study. He should go through the market, and he should pick the 3 or 4 most comparable properties that have recently sold, and he should compare those to the property that you want to buy. And he should tell you that the market value of this property that you want to buy, and market value is an appraisal term, and it's a technical term. It means the most likely price a property will sell for in a competitive market. Your agent should tell you what is the market value of this property. And let's say he says it's going to be a range. It's going to be, the value is between $465 and $485. Nobody can pinpoint it. Nobody can tell you exactly what it's going to be worth. It's not an exact science, but a good agent can get really close. So before you make your offer, he should do a CMA, a BPO, or a pricing. It's all the same thing. Comparative market analysis, broker pricing opinion, it's all the same thing. And he should say, it's worth $465 to $485. How much do you want to offer? Going back to leverage. How many other buyers are looking? You went to an open house maybe. Was it crowded? Were there 10 cars in the driveway? Okay, seller, that I would say the seller's left. But you then can decide if you're the only offer, and he's listed for $500,000, and your agent's telling you it's worth $465 to $485. You may decide to offer $475 to see how he responds, or $470. You don't want to overpay for the property. That's not good. But even worse is you don't want to not know you're overpaying for the property. And I've worked with some buyers they want the property. Okay, it's not just about the money that or the equity that may start growing. It's a home. So in a competitive market, to get the property, to own the home, some buyers will make a conscious decision to offer above market value. But you should know if you're doing that. And if your agent is doing their job, you will know that. But this is a pretty critical step. And then once your offer's done, the last page is from contract to closing. Once the purchase agreement is signed, so in most states the offer is a preliminary agreement. It sets forth the major business terms. You get your inspections done. You remove a lot of those things, and then you sign a more detailed contract, and you put down a greater deposit, and then you can close usually within 45 to 60 days. The lender's got to do title search. The lender's got to get the appraisal done, and that's kind of sort of it. Questions? Anything? Did I talk too much? Was this useful? How do they reach me? Well, my business cards are here. Everybody grab a business card. On your handout, it's got my website, it's got my email address, it's got my phone number. I know it's a lot, guys. I know it's a lot of information, but I started at the beginning to say it is complicated. But I'm here. My job, that's why I started DRE Real Estate Coaching. My job is to help people. And I've seen so many times buyers get involved in an agent, and they don't know what's involved. They don't know of all the complications, of all the moving parts. And that's why I'm here, to help people understand that. And have fun doing it. So. And it's better to do this on an individual basis. Okay, questions?
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. The mic is here. If you have any questions, please feel free. I have. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. You said one should be careful not to make offers that's like overpayment for the property. How come that we have stories these days of people paying a lot of money over and above the asking prices? So what do you think is going on in the market as to warrant that?
What do I think is going on in the market right now?
Yes, I hear people paying 50,000 over and above the asking. Some are paying 100,000 over and above the asking.
Absolutely right.
And I used to wonder, what's really going on?
That is all because there has been an extreme shortage of sellers, of listings, of available inventory, and interest rates in recent years have been very competitive, and there's been a lot of buyers, and there's been numerous buyers, multiple buyers competing for the same property. So that's the law of supply and demand. And if there's an extremely limited supply and the demand is huge, which it has been, it's just a perfect storm for the seller. But I do think that that's going to change a little bit. Interest rates have gone up 3%, 4%. I think, if a seller lists his home and it doesn't sell because there's fewer buyers, then he's going to start changing his price, and the serious buyers that are out there may seem less competition. But I know it's frustrating, but that's the way it is. And I've been doing this for 40 years. This is the strongest seller's market I have ever seen. And in Boston, this has been happening for 5 or 6 years, 7 years. And it's starting to slow down now, based on the people I talk to. The inventory is growing. Prices may level off, and things will change because it is cyclical. So if you're a buyer and you don't want to get into a bidding situation, I understand that. A lot don't. Then you can avoid it. So.
Okay, based on that, just a quick question before I pass it on. So what do you advise buyers to do? Should they wait for, the cycle to change, or just go ahead?
It could take longer. It could take longer. The real estate market doesn't usually respond that quickly. The stock market will respond every single day. You can see the changes in real time just about, but the real estate market, it's going to take a little. Sellers can be real fickle. Okay. Sellers, if the market's changing, and the real estate's job may, in the coming months, they've been having to slow the sellers down on pricing. Say, no, you can't list it for $1 million. We won't get any offers, and you get 5 offers. So the sellers have been going crazy, and that momentum, they're thinking, that's not going to change overnight. And a lot of them will get caught behind the market change. So no, it's not a matter of weeks. It may not even be a matter of months. The real estate market happens in seasons. The spring season, if we have a mild winter, if we don't have much snow, the spring real estate market will start earlier in February, March. If we have a lot of snow in March, that will delay it. But the spring market usually starts March-ish, and it goes through to the 4th of July. So the residential real estate market, that is the #1 critical selling season, is the spring. Usually in the summer it slows off, and then there's another period in the fall. So we need to keep our eyes on what's going to happen with our real estate agent this spring, in March. I would want to sit, if I was buying, I'd want to get a good agent and go through and pull out all the data in my price range, in my location, how many are available, how many have sold, how many months supply of inventory. If it's greater than 5, if it starts getting up to 10-15 months, that's good for me as a buyer. So we may know that in the spring, but that may even be too early. Yes, sir.
As a buyer, should I be more concerned about the interest rates or the price of the house? So, for example, maybe high interest rate, lower price of the house, or low interest rate and overpaying for the house?
Well, you got to be concerned about both because the interest rates are going to determine affordability. So, if rates go up 2, 3, 4% on the same mortgage, then your monthly income, your debt service, your mortgage payment goes up, and so that may, you get back to the 4 C's, that may limit how much of a property you can look at. So you need to kind of focus on both of them. And nobody knows what's going to happen to interest rates. Ken Richards might. He's a CPA. He knows what's going to happen to money. But that's a good question, but it is a bit of an unknown, and you've just got to sit down and, again, get good information. When you get to the point where you're serious about buying a home, this is it. And remember, it's a home. My first home, I paid 16% on the mortgage. And there are some tax benefits with the mortgage, obviously your interest, but I wanted a home. And so 16% reduces, but if interest rates get that high, then the sellers are gonna, then the prices are gonna flatten, they're gonna soften. So, but it may take time. So.
Yes, thank you very much for coming here today. So my question is, earlier you mentioned that nobody gets paid, both the agent, the seller agent and the buyer agent, until the property, you close on the property. So in a situation where you find a structural defect on the property, and of course you already put on a down payment, and then you end up saying, okay, I'm going to have to bail out on this. I don't want to deal with crack basement or all those structural problems. And then your agent now telling you, you know you have to pay me 50% of your down payment because you bail out. Does that make sense?
No. But the answer to that question could be in a contract or an agreement that you signed with the agent. Because there are some real estate agents that if the buyer, a well-written contract, you're going to have the right to have a home inspection. And if there's a legitimate concern, it should be written that you have the right to rescind get out of the deal and get your money back. If you don't get the mortgage and you've done everything you were supposed to do to get the mortgage and for some reason you can't get a commitment, you should get your money back. There are some real estate agents that have tried to put in a clause if the property doesn't close once you go to contract through no fault of theirs, that may have their hand out for a bit of a commission. But that's very short-sighted, and those are the agents that we want to try to avoid, okay? There should be no confusion that if you have the legitimate right to do something, and you do that, and there's a cracked foundation, and you didn't, that's a surprise, and that's a substantial expense, you should have the right to negotiate the price. Well, you don't have the right to renegotiate the price. You may decide to do that, but you should have the legal right to say, I'm out, I want my money back, and continue your search. So, but you do have to be careful with some real estate agents.
Just to clarify, of course the check was refunded, but he said this is what his, the agency, his company, this is what we're supposed to give him. So, of course, then we said, okay, maybe 25% because he has put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, maybe 25%, not 50% of the down payment. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm not, that's unusual. That would be unusual, but I'm not an attorney, and I can't give legal advice, but I would want to look at whatever agreements were signed between the parties and know a little bit. He could be just trying to pull a fast one, and is it the agent, or is it the firm, or is it both? Just the agent? Yeah. If I were that person, I would say, what are you basing your request on? Tell me what agreement or what document or what is there that gives you the right to this money? And I would ask him that question. Say, how, that's the nature of our beast. And that's, a good real estate agent is going to try to invest their time in real buyers and sellers. And remember we talked, there's good agents and there's bad agents, but they don't get paid an hourly rate. And the nature of the beast is if it doesn't close and the buyer or the seller has a legitimate reason to get out, if the seller can't deliver marketable title, if there's a title flaw that goes back number of years that he can't clear, then he's not liable to pay a commission either. That might be, the first approach I would take, I would say, based on what document, based on what agreement, based on what conversation, based on what are you saying? And if he says, oh, I've got time into it, then I would just ignore him. So.
Thank you, Dave. I just want to say a few things based on our experience in what we have seen in the past few years. And I want to know what you think of what I'm thinking that could be done. When a person is a first-time buyer, sometimes I think they can be railroaded into just something, particularly if we have an agent that is not really looking out for their client, but they just want to make some commission. And my thinking is that people who want to buy should also have someone that can counsel them or advise them. Because we have been to certain properties that an agent was getting our son to make an offer on. And I just told him, I want to see the place before you finally take your decision. And we got to the place, and I was surprised that he could even make an offer on such a building.
Yeah.
Look at this structure. This is not something that you should really be involved in.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that for first-time buyers, particularly youths, maybe just out of college, many people know they're looking, they want to get something. I think no matter what, they should be a little bit cautious, even though they have an agent, because the agent may not be looking after their real interests. We have seen many examples, and we were the saving grace to save our kids from the kind of properties that it took them to.
No, you're right. There's some out there that are more concerned about their commission than they are. And remember, they have a fiduciary duty. That is a legal requirement. That's a legal duty to the buyer client to act in their best interest. But there's some, as we said, there's some good real estate agents and there's some bad real estate agents. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do here, is to make sure that people get in touch with the good ones and not the bad ones. And there's a ton of bad ones out there. And you need to think with your head and not with your heart. And if somebody says, oh, my cousin's brother is just got his license and he's still working at another job and he's doing this part-time, an alarm should go off. No. You want full-time, experienced real estate agents who value the fiduciary relationship, and then the individual buyer has got to have the ability to also sometimes push back on them and say, no, I don't like that. That's not the property I want. But yeah, there's some agents that like to push people around. There's some, maybe this lady over here had one that thought he could take advantage of a situation as well. So you just have to be careful. And trust. Trust in your real estate agent is so critical. It's good to have someone that you like. I don't necessarily think you want to have someone you know, but you got to have someone that you feel you can trust. So take the time when you select your real estate agent to feel good about it. and ask the questions that we've kind of sort of talked about. You tell me, what does the fiduciary duty mean to you? Can you tell me what will be your responsibilities to me? And that's where I hope to come in, because I hope to coach people and educate people, say, these are the questions you need to ask your broker. And I'll even sit on the broker interview if you want, to make sure that maybe, hopefully, you're getting off on the right foot, but things can still go wrong. Things can still go wrong.
Thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
My question is, after a closure, can a bad broker, like some broker, they can like persuade you or pressure you into closing because of their commission, and without them giving you, they might just like, they have their way of covering things. So for the transaction not to be like, they don't want to drag it any longer because of their commission, they just want to close and just move on. And if a buyer, after closure, discovers some defects in the house, can the buyer be sued? And if yes, like, what's the duration? How much time does the buyer have to sue the broker or the agent?
The seller or the agent. Yeah, every seller in Rhode Island, and this is kind of sort of different from state to state. In Rhode Island, the seller is required to complete a home disclosure, very detailed document that will talk about things that they have knowledge of. And if they lie on that, they have serious liability. So if they say, no, the roof has never leaked, but after a buyer moves in and he uncovers evidence that, yeah, the roof did leak before we were here, and if it can be determined that he lied on the disclosure, that seller has very serious liability. The seller in Rhode Island is required to disclose anything that he has not. He's required to disclose facts, and so is the agent. And a fact is something that they have seen, that they know there's a problem with the roof. I've seen it. Or a professional, a home inspector or an engineer or a professional has come in and told them there's a problem with the roof. If the seller or his agent is aware of that and they don't disclose it to the buyer, they have serious liability after the closing. And I don't think there's necessarily, I don't know if there's a statute of limitations on that, but it can take 6 months. If it's the rainy season, if we get more rain in the spring and then, the basement doesn't fill up until, next spring, and that's 8 months away, I think they still have liability. In Massachusetts, it's a little different. In Massachusetts, the seller does not have to disclose unless he is asked. And he does not have to fill a seller disclosure form in Massachusetts. So it's a little less, it's not as buyer-friendly in Massachusetts as it is in Rhode Island. But most states, 40-some-odd states, have that requirement where the seller must disclose a fact he is aware of. And if he doesn't, it could be triple damages, 3 times the damages.
Excuse me, just to follow up on that. If the seller does not disclose and the inspection does not pick it up, can the seller hide under the inspection that after all the building was inspected and this issue was not noted on the inspection report? Or will you still be able to claim irrespective of the inspection?
The seller, the home inspector could have liability if there's something that he missed, that he should have caught. It's pretty hypothetical, but a home inspector, they're licensed and they're certified. And so they are hired to look at the home. And if you're going to get a detailed inspection report. And if he says, no, the roof is fine, no problem, and there is a problem, he could have liability. And if the seller was aware of it and didn't disclose it, then he could have liability. So the buyer's attorney is going to have a field day. He may go after everybody. But there's probably some conditions that a home inspector might not, I mean, if there's something buried inside, I mean, he's not going to tear down walls to see what, like maybe mold, it would be an example. If it's inside the wall, he's not going to, if there's no evidence at all, then he may not, the home inspector may not have liability. But if it's something that he should have picked up on and he didn't, if he didn't do his job right, then yeah, he could have liability as well. The laws, there's an old saying in real estate, some of you may have heard it, many, 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 many years ago. Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, because there were no disclosures. Nobody, you know, you didn't know what you were getting. And everybody told the buyer to beware. That's all changed. It's now, let the broker beware. Let the seller beware. Let the home inspector beware, because the laws are very buyer-friendly. And in Massachusetts, they have something called 93A that deals with this. That's a legal statute, and the seller could be liable for triple damages. No, not the seller, I'm sorry, no, the broker, because the broker's in the business. The seller is not liable for triple damages in Massachusetts, but he could be liable for one-time damages.
Hi, David. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I have one question about PMI. Can you explain what PMI is and when do you get rid of PMI?
PMI?
Yes, what is PMI and when does someone get rid of PMI on the mortgage?
PMI is private mortgage insurance. And if you're going for a, quote, conventional mortgage, the lender is going to want to see 20% down, a 20% down payment. But they may also have a program where you can only put 10% down. So they want 20. You've only got 10. So that other 10%, they will charge you a monthly private mortgage insurance premium. So the lender can buy insurance for that 10%, allowing the buyer only to put 10% down as opposed to 20, but the lender is still covered for the 20%. Does that make sense? And so as you pay the mortgage off and your equity grows and you have more than 20% equity in the property, you can cancel the PMI, but that'll take a little time.
Thank you so much, Dave. I think it's been a lot of insights, and I think we've all got value from coming here. Thank you so much. I would like to close at this time. If we have any other questions, how can people reach you, basically?
Everybody grab my card, or on your handout is my name and my email address and my website, and don't hesitate. If email is great, just identify yourself that you had attended this so I can. You need cards?
Okay.
Some right there, babe. Oh, you did? Okay. And so if you do contact me, reach out, just say, hey, I was at the program on Sunday night and I had a question. I'm happy to talk to you. Happy to talk to you.
All right, great. Do you also take on clients, for those who might?
I don't do brokerage.
Okay.
You mean, do I practice? Do I show houses?
Coaching?
Just coaching.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go out on property showings. I will sit in on critical times and talk about this education, hook you up with a broker, and a good broker that you're comfortable with. But I'm not going to walk through every stage of this, but I'm available for questions. And again, there's no charge for my services unless or until the property closes. And remember that chart up above, you got 6%, you got a 6% bucket of money to deal with. I'm hoping to get, if you want to buy something, I would call a good buyer's agent and say, I have a referral for you. This person is, just getting started. They need to talk to a lender. They've already spoken with a lender. These are the towns they're looking in. This is their time frame. And I would make the referral. Doesn't affect you financially in the least. And if nothing ever happens and you don't buy anything, then I'm a volunteer, and I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Let's put our hands together for Dave. Thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you. And just one last thing. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, commercial. I'll talk to him after. All right. Thank you very much. Today, is the first of this. We want feedback. Let us know, was this helpful? Did you learn anything? Do you want more of this? What topics do you want? You could send messages to send a message to me, basically 401, or talk to me, because we want this to be continuous and we want this to be practical. So thank you once again, and God bless you for showing up. God bless you, Dave, and of course your beautiful wife for joining us this evening and for sharing this knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thanks for doing it. I applaud you guys for doing it.
Awesome. So if you don't have the brochure, I think we can get more for those. For those who don't have the handout, yeah.
If you don't have it, I can email it to you.
Okay, all right.
No
So we
problem.
can get it and send it to those who want
But
it.
there should be enough. There's a few more up here if you need some.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Are those
we
buyers or
didn't know.
sellers? No, those are the sellers. That's for a different day.
Oh, okay.
Buyers.
All right. So if you need,
You can make copies for
yes,
people
we
who
just
need
have this.